Even if you are not a giant aviation fan, and even if you don't idolize Howard Hughes or the Wright brothers, you're bound to still be very impressed by these massive airplanes. Airplanes on their own are fascinating feats of human marvel and ingenuity. We may not have evolved for flight, yet we dared to make it happen anyway. These planes are some of the largest aircrafts ever made, so large that you'll question how they could have existed in the first place. Oh, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you can have more fun facts at your fingertips that you can always use to impress others and make yourself seem savvy. Or if you just like to know things for your own pleasure, who doesn't? Hughes H-4 Hercules. This airplane was a massive flying boat taking off and landing via water. Built by Hughes Aircraft Company, it was the largest flying boat ever built with the largest wingspan. It weighed 400,000 pounds and had a wingspan of 320 feet. It was originally built during World War II in 1942 per the US government's request for a carrier that could carry cargo and troops without being susceptible to Axis submarines. It was made from wood instead of metal because of the need to conserve wartime materials. The aircraft was nicknamed the Spruce Goose even though it was built entirely of laminated birch and not spruce. It reportedly really ruffled Hughes' feathers that this nickname caught on. It was designed to carry 750 fully equipped troops or 75 tons of cargo. The beast also features 8 radial engines. The US government spent $22 million on the craft, and Hughes personally spent $18 million on it as well. In spite of this huge undertaking, the plane only flew once, on November 2, 1947. It was fired up for some taxi tests, flown for 1 mile, and airborne at 70 feet at a speed of 80 miles per hour before landing. The flight was over in less than a minute, almost more disappointing than spending thousands on a wedding and getting left at the altar. I think Hughes wins the investment loss Olympics on this one, even though he kept up the condition of the aircraft until his dying day. Still a better love story than Twilight. Convair B-36 Peacemaker. Some might argue that calling this monstrous plane a Peacemaker is a bit of an ironic thing to do, like calling Congress useful or Justin Bieber profound. For one, it was crafted with the idea of it being a mega bomber in mind, with its core purpose of being able to carry bombs to Germany before flying home. In 1941, German troops held most of Western Europe. The US was worried that they would continue to be real douche canoes and then conquer Britain. The giant bomber had a wingspan of 230 feet, powered by 6 piston and 4 jet engines. It remains the largest mass-produced piston engine aircraft ever built, requiring a 13-man crew. The plan for the aircraft was that it would cross the Atlantic Ocean before entering German territory and dropping 10,000 pounds of bombs from an airborne height of 40,000 feet. This was considered too high for it to be interrupted by fighter pilots. 10,000 pounds, by the way, also happened to be the weight of 1 atomic bomb. The first prototype did not fly until after the war, and the aircraft turned out to be more high maintenance than a retail customer. After a flight duration of about 36 hours, a mechanic would need to haul a bucket of replacement plugs to maintain the plane's 336 spark plugs, servicing all 6 engines. The engines also had a tendency to leak oil, sometimes needing a shutdown if one exhausted its 150-gallon allotment. Antonov An-124. This giant was the first military transport plane in the world to carry a whopping payload of 60 tons. Let's just put that into more tangible terms. 60 tons is the equivalent of a crushing 120,000 pounds. Its first flight was in 1965, and at the time, it established more than 40 records for cargo capacity. I would personally much rather break records for creating an aviation badass than for icky things like having the world's longest fingernails. Do they get their own handicap stalls or something? Because that must be debilitating. Anyway, back to the cool giant metal bird. We tend to think of prop planes as little, cute sorts of things, but this beast is the largest turboprop-powered aircraft in the history of forever. It contained some of the biggest screws in the world, which had diameters of 6.2 meters. That's about 20 feet. The cargo cabins were 4.4 meters, or approximately 15 feet wide, and 4.4 meters high. Its wingspan sits confidently at 211 feet and can carry 290 passengers. Production ended in 1974 after the 75 aircraft had been produced for the Soviet Air Force and Aeroflot. The aircrafts are still used in the military transport aviation regiments of the Russian Federation. Boeing B-52. This massive sky contraption was America's first long-range swept-wing heavy bomber. For those that probably don't know about aerodynamics, the swept wings that angle backwards or forwards have the effect of delaying aerodynamic drag rise. In other words, this thing goes hella fast with a top speed of 650 miles per hour. That is faster than the rise and fall of most Instagram modeling careers. In the 50s, it broke records by cutting the round-the-world speed record in half. It also broke distance records when it went from Japan to Spain without any refueling. The B-52 featured 8 engines and weighed a massive 390,000 pounds. It began its career as an intercontinental high-altitude bomber like our old friend the Peacemaker. But its specifications and capacities were altered to meet the changing needs of American defense. One of the ways it has been modified is for the purpose of low-level flight. It can also carry cruise and ballistic missiles. The final version of the B-52 is still in service after having its first flight on March 6, 1961. Plants in Seattle, Washington, and Wichita, Kansas produced a total of 744 B-52s. I want to see them all fly in a V. The last of those were made in 1962. The aircraft saw active battle in the Vietnam War. It was also used in the Gulf War and in Afghanistan in 2001. Lockheed C-5 Galaxy. No, Samsung didn't release a new Galaxy phone that you haven't heard of. This title belongs to an airplane that really deserves it for its monstrous size. When it was built in the 1970s, it became the largest aircraft in the world and still remains one of the largest to this day. It boasts a shocking height of 65 feet. That is about 65 stories tall. It is 247 feet long, or the equivalent of approximately 3 blue whales, because I kinda wish blue whales were a standard unit of measurement. It also has a wingspan of 222.8 feet. It weighs 839,961 pounds and can carry a payload of 250,000 pounds. It can fly ranges of about 3,000 miles without any need for aerial refueling. It was born from the U.S. Air Force's need to produce strategic, heavy-hauling long-range carriers. It's a plane that can hold planes. Its cargo hold was meant to be able to hold Sikorsky UH-60 type helicopters or even modern Boeing V-22 Osprey planes. When full of cargo, this beast can weigh almost 1,000,000 pounds. 1,000,000 pounds! Since the average weight of a human is 136 pounds, that would be the weight of 7,352 human beings. That's more people than the largest cruise ship passenger capacity. But we all know the weight of that population might be different when they leave the ship compared to when they got on. Cruise food. Antonov An-124. Hailing from Ukraine as its country of origin, Antonov has pulled off another record-breaking monster plane. The Russians keep one-upping Americans when it comes to being bigger and better. This plane used to have the bragging rights of being the world's largest aircraft before its derivative, the An-225, showed up on the scene. It has the ability to carry missile units alongside main battle tanks. But this list is starting to make me jaded. I'll be more impressed when we have a plane that can house the Death Star. But nevertheless, the An-124 still holds claim to several records. One of them includes carrying the heaviest single load ever transported via air. It carried a 124-ton power plant generator packed in its weight-distributing cradle. Can you imagine the pressure in piloting such a transport? The aircraft also has the ability to kneel so that front loading can be accomplished with its nose cargo. This thing has an incredible wingspan at 240 feet. The aircraft itself is 68 feet tall, even taller than our last contender. 25 of these carriers were in use in the year 2000. What amazes me is that these giants can be handled with a flight crew of 6, including 2 pilots, a navigator, a communications operator, and 2 flight engineers. Tupolev Tu-160. We continue on to the world's largest operational bomber with the Tu-160, or Blackjack as NATO named it. The pilots, however, nicknamed it the White Swan. Seeing this thing in the air, you can see why. It has a 189-foot wingspan, and it holds the first-place title as being the heaviest aircraft carrier ever built. It weighs 118 tons when empty and 275 tons at maximum takeoff. It can reach transonic speeds. In other words, it gets close to the speed of sound. It reached a crazy speed of 2,200 kilometers per hour the first time in a flight in 1989. This means it has a top speed of Mach 2. Can you imagine the potential G-forces? It has set 44 world records, which might just be a record for the number of records on this list. It's also capable of carrying missiles with nuclear warheads, making it an aircraft you really don't want to mess with. Maybe pissing off Putin is more disconcerting than people would typically think. The aircraft, however, saw very protracted production that was touch and go. Several were dismantled or scrapped in 1998 under a contract issued by the US government. But it is rumored by some sources that the Russian Air Force still operates 16 of these bombers. Boeing 747-8. This is one of the few on the list of massive airplanes that functions as a commercial passenger plane. It is the longest passenger aircraft in the world at 250 feet in length, capable of holding 410 passengers. It has a wingspan of 224 feet. The Boeing 747-8 Intercontinental has a tail that is 63 feet tall, the height of a 6-story building. A fun way to think of their payload is in units of gold bars. I still prefer blue whales. But anyway, Boeing claims that their freighter aircraft is capable of transporting 10,767 solid gold bars from Fort Knox. That would be a 5,430,228,780 flight. Or we could also just say that it can carry a payload of 137 tons, but that's less fun. It is the heaviest production cargo plane in the world. It is powered by 4 engines and can travel the length of 3 FIFA soccer fields in 1 second. Much of the plane is made with advanced aluminum alloys. You also have to check out the passenger experience. This plane looks like it walked out of MTV's Cribs. It's so nicely designed. It also might be one of the few, if not the only, commercial airplanes to be large enough to have a staircase. What will they come up with next? Airplanes with elevators? Oh geez, I'd better patent that idea. Airbus A380. I stand corrected. There are other commercial airplanes with staircases in them. The Airbus A380 is truly intimidating in size. There are about 300 flights a day using this type of aircraft. But imagine a plane that you can actually stretch out in. Gone are the days of accidentally elbowing your strange cubicle neighbor. Gone are the days of offending someone to the highest degree for reclining your seat. This Airbus is a double-deck and the largest commercial aircraft in existence. There's room for 555 passengers, just 111 passengers away from scaring away all your business. But that number varies by airline. Qantas, for example, only has 523 seats, but that is still truly massive. It's spacious enough for amenities like bars, gymnasiums, and duty-free shops. The aircraft is powered by 70,000-pound thrust engines, and it can travel a maximum speed of Mach 0.89. The plane is 239 feet long with a wingspan of about 262 feet. The internet is already fascinated enough with this plane that people have taken to photoshopping the aircraft with 4 levels instead of 2. We're not really sure if that's possible with current engineering. But it's worth noting that there was a time that this massive beast itself would have seemed outright impossible. Antonov An-124. I hope you're ready to be wowed because this airplane really takes the giant cake. Earlier, when Russia began their space program, they needed a plane to carry the space shuttle around. Enter Antonov An-125 stage right. Its Soviet nickname is Mriya, which is Ukrainian for dream. Very fitting. This thing dwarfs the Boeing 747. It could carry enough food to end a famine. It could also transport 10 battle tanks or 4 fully loaded British Challenger 2 tanks, if it wanted to. Do you even lift, bro? It is nearly a football field long, or 275 feet, from nose to tip. Its wingspan is a crazy 290 feet. It also has a maximum takeoff weight of 1.32 million pounds. And I have trouble taking off out of bed in the morning. It's unbelievable that something quite that heavy can soar through the air. It pulls it off, though, with 6 turbofan jets, each capable of 51,590 pounds of thrust. When the Russian space program disbanded for lack of funds, the An-125 found new use decades later on its first commercial flight in January of 2002. It took off from Germany and hauled 216,000 prepared meals for American military personnel camped at the Persian Gulf. In more recent years, it has done 11 trips to places in the UK. I hope you enjoyed learning about these giant airplanes, and I hope it brought some awe to your day. Now you can impress the pants off of your engineer friends. Remember to post selfies that make everyone jealous if you decide to fly on that crazy Airbus.